The biggest places where I see firms struggle is having a really clear process around getting reviews. So you need to know exactly when you're requesting the review. Some firms do it actually just after their first consultation with someone, because if you wait in, like, it's a nice thought to think you'll capture the review after they have the big check. A lot of times that's just forgotten in the process.
Sharp strategies, sweet success. Hello, everyone, and welcome. You're listening to Sharp Strategies, Sweet Success. This is your host, Tiffany Swedensky. And today I am here with Julia Hensel. We had this podcast scheduled twice last week and had to reschedule, and then finally getting a chance to meet up today. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Julia and let her finish out her introduction.
Hi, everyone, and good to see you, Tiffany. Yeah, I'm Julia Hensel. I'm the CEO of Lexigate, as well as a sister company called RepSpert that we recently acquired. Lexigate does SEO for law firms, so trying to get law firms' websites more visible in organic search. And then RepSpert is a one-star review removal company. So we help get down those sticky, difficult, stubborn one-star reviews that a lot of law firms cannot stand.
Oh. So coming into the legal space as as an SEO company, what are you learning, discovering that maybe you didn't know going in beforehand?
Yeah, the world of legal SEO is fascinating and definitely one of the most competitive areas for SEO. Personal injury, of course, being the most competitive within all the different legal disciplines, just because of the search volume and the value of getting those cases. So it's really fun to be in an area where you really have to be at the tip of the spear as far as SEO best practices. So a lot of what we're focusing on right now is not only how do we get folks visible in Google search results, but also how do we create strategies that are sustainable as search continues to shift and more people aren't just always opening Google, but they're opening ChatGPT, or I'm obsessed personally with Claude. But anyway, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, all the other AI tools that are out there. So I think that's what a lot of our focus on learning has been on recently, is how do we continue to evolve our strategies to keep up with those platforms.
I was thinking about this the other day because I came from a background where I was a marketer at a law firm before I was a fractional CMO. And what's interesting is that, a lot of small law firms will hire that solo in-house marketer, and that solo in-house marketer might have a marketing background, but they're stepping into an environment where they don't realize how competitive it is. Like, they don't realize how competitive law firm personal injury marketing is. And it's just interesting to think about all these law firms that have like bestowed that kind of marketing job on somebody who has like almost no idea what they're getting into. And it's kind of funny. And speaking of AI search, because this is also something I was thinking of, but how people use AI is so widely varied. Something I realize I'm kind of not a part of is how many people are using like voice AI. Like, I just
Mm,
don't do that. I never really even like Siri or anything like that.
yeah.
But, people aren't just like using ChatGPT like a chatbot. They're talking to it,
Hmm.
incorporating it in their lives, and tools that they use are now using AI and they had no idea. It's so bizarre. It is like a quickly shifting landscape. It's so crazy.
Yeah, it's cool, all the new tools that are out there. Yeah, it's beyond what people kind of originally were using ChatGPT, of just chatting back and forth through typing. I actually use the audio part of ChatGPT a lot. I don't know if it's as I'm getting older, my fingers get tired or something, but I'll talk to it just like you're on a phone call with a friend and it's giving you advice. So anyway, it's fun to see what all is out there.
Yeah. So, like, what kind of new, I mean, you don't have to give everything away, but like, what kind of new strategies should law firms be considering as they want to remain competitive in like AGO or AEO, or what do you call it? What's
Yeah.
the acronym?
Oh my goodness, there are so many different three-letter acronyms. It's like we all need to align on one acronym, because I hear AIO, GO, like anyway, there's so many for essentially the same concept, and I don't have a preferred acronym, but The good news for lawyers is there is a ton of overlap between what drove visibility in traditional Google search and then what will drive visibility in ChatGPT and the LLMs, which is great news because Google is still for transactional searches, like someone searching for personal injury lawyer Tallahassee. Google is still 210 times the volume of the AI tools of ChatGPT, and then all the other tools are less than that. So anyway, I saw this funny meme the other day that it's like a marketer focusing their attention, and they're focusing all their attention, and they're in a swimming pool and they're focusing all their attention in the new child, which is the LLM search, whereas where the Google search is like drowning and Bing is at the absolute bottom of the ocean. But anyway, all that to be said, even the good news is that you are able to use similar strategies for both, which means you don't need to pick which child to save in the drowning pool between ChatGPT and Google. So a lot of the things that were kind of already best practice as far as, having really strong localized content on your website does also improve your visibility in ChatGPT. That being said, there are some new strategies that we are kind of doubling down on to have that are kind of more focused on how do you get visibility in the LLMs. So one of those, for example, is branded mentions. So if you think about it, ChatGPT is a large language model, which means that it is generating words based on probability patterns, based on the other words previous in the sentence. And so what that means is that if your brand, so your law firm name, is mentioned throughout the internet ether many times in context of the terms that you're trying to be visible for, like car accident lawyer, Tallahassee, when those terms then are like typed into the LLM and is trying to form language as far as a response, your brand is more likely to be mentioned if it's mentioned more frequently throughout the internet. And so what we're working on is intentionally building up those, what we're calling like branded mentions. In the past, folks familiar with SEO are probably familiar with link building, which is still important. But now what's cool is that these branded mentions can be important and helpful, even if they don't have a link to your website, because these tools are smart enough to pick up on the language and the language patterns. So that's just one example of kind of a yes and to the old strategy that we are now kind of building on top of what we were previously doing for the Google visibility.
So I've heard a lot about how directories play a part in how you show up for AI search. Can you tell me a little bit more
Yeah.
about that, or like what your all's take on that is?
Yeah, completely agree. So it kind of goes back to what I was just talking about as far as branded mentions. Directories are a good opportunity for having your brand mentioned in the context of firms that serve different areas. But then we also see LLMs pull from directories a lot as sources. So one thing we do for our clients is called an AI knowledge audit, where we look at ChatGPT and we ask it a series of questions of what it knows and doesn't know about your firm and your competitors. And we find that it's often drawing information from directories, even obscure directories that have not made it to the first page of Google for, 20 years. But it's pulling a lot from that. One interesting example is I've even seen it pull hours from people's directory listings, like their hours of operation. So a lot of law firms work really hard to make sure their Google hours are 24/7. Then you type into ChatGPT and you look up the firm and it says closed. And we've had this in a few instances, and we've asked where it's pulling those hours from, and it was getting them from their FindLaw profile, which said their hours were 8 to 5. So anyway, as annoying as it is to get things really cleaned up and consistent across all the directories, I do think it's more important now than it ever has been before.
As somebody managing the in-house marketing teams, I can tell you it is quite annoying with the directories, and it's a lot of back and forth emails. It's a lot of phone calls in some cases. And, nobody really wants to do it. Nobody wants to go back and forth with MapQuest or FindLaw.
Mhm.
And, where a lot of marketers stub their toe is the cost for the premium listings. It's like, well,
Mhm.
they won't let us update this or that unless we pay them this or that. And the cost seems outrageous because it's
Mhm.
like more than a car payment, for a lot of people.
Mhm.
But that's just kind of the ante to play the game. And going back to how personal injury is so competitive, like you just end up
Yeah.
having to spend so much money to make these things work. And interesting that you brought up that example, because to me, when you think about it, Like if I was ChatGPT or OpenAI, like FindLaw would be a more authoritative source of information about a law firm than perhaps Google Business, which I think
Mhm,
technically you could see as like their competitor. So I could
mhm,
totally see that. I could see like a FindLaw, Avo, Martindale
mhm,
listing with dated information, but nobody wants
mhm,
to update it because you have to go through that administrative
mhm,
nightmare. It's just
mhm.
it's terrible and whatever at the same time. And something that you mentioned at the very beginning, which we haven't touched on yet, but is kind of near and dear to my heart currently, is reviews. Like you have a company that'll do review removal, and that's like a huge part of local SEO right now. Like tell me a little bit about that. Like how did you guys get into review removal?
Yeah, so review removal is a fascinating kind of niche that we've been learning a ton about since we acquired this company. The company's called RepSpert and it's been around since 2020. So they do review removal across all industries, but especially legal. We actually came to know them through Lexigate, working with them for some of our clients. Many of our clients have just gotten really unfair, crazy one-star reviews. For example, we actually have a preschool client that just over the weekend got a one-star review from someone who the text of review said, I don't have kids. And so it's like, okay, this is not feedback for our preschool. This is just someone providing an unsolicited one-star review. And so similarly with a lot of our legal clients, the most common one-star review on any law firm's Google business profile is simply they said they wouldn't take my case, which for many lawyers, that's like the responsible, rational thing to do, right? If you cannot serve someone effectively, is to turn down the case, and then people get upset and leave it as a one-star review. Again, that's not a customer with feedback. And so those are not the types of things that should be reflected on your Google business profile. So what RepSpert helps with is essentially making the argument with the platform directly as far as why the review needs to be removed and getting that down. Because of course, why the acquisition made sense is there is so much tie-in between your Google business rating and your local SEO performance. And so the two go hand in hand well.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like anytime you get to a point with a Google business listing where it's been optimized, we've been adding photos, we've been getting reviews, that
Mhm,
like more reviews is basically all you can do. Like more reviews or more
mhm,
PR or something like that. When you think about it, lawyers, law firms are often working with people at like the worst point in their lives. I'm working with a medical malpractice firm, and one of their biggest issues, you said it right there, is that they get negative reviews from people who they've turned down because that person doesn't have a case. They just had like a bad medical outcome. Or in the case of like family law attorneys, nobody likes having to deal with the family law case. Like it's show me
yeah,
the person who loves going to court or family law and I'll show you a crazy person, except the lawyer, I guess.
yeah,
And it's an industry where people are just generally don't want to be there. And
yeah,
so one-star reviews are common and
mhm,
can sometimes be gained unfairly just because like and it also makes me reflect on all the people who I've talked to and know who say they don't like lawyers. And it's like, no, you probably just got a
yeah,
bad outcome or didn't hear what you wanted to hear. And that's not necessarily bad. That's just like not what you wanted.
yeah,
Um, but at the same time, like I see firms getting good reviews all the time. I see
yeah,
criminal lawyers getting good reviews, family
yeah,
lawyers getting good reviews, hand over fist. So it's
yeah,
not impossible. And you almost have to be like proactive. You have to like combat the bad reviews by getting good reviews because the more good reviews that you have, the more reluctant somebody is to give you like 2 stars or 1 star. You know, that's what I'm sorry. I kind of went
yeah.
on there, but yeah.
No, I completely agree with that. And you're absolutely right. As far as lawyers see it all, we have a lot of family law clients on the RepSpert side who, they get good reviews from their clients and then they get the one stars from like the ex-spouse of whoever is the other party in the divorce case. And so, anyway, again, it's like they weren't a client of the firm. This is not feedback. This is just like vengeance. And so, anyway, we're happy to help in those situations, but completely agree. You can never review removal your ways to success, right? Like the best way to continue to build your business is by delivering amazing client experience and having those clients who love you are happy to give 5-star reviews. And On that front, what we always recommend, so I'm a big believer that you need genuine, true reviews. I would never promote like purchasing reviews or anything like that. I do think karma will get you in the long run, and it's just not the right thing to do. But the biggest places where I see firms struggle is having a really clear process around getting reviews. So you need to know exactly when you're requesting the review. Some firms do it actually just after their first consultation with someone, because if you wait and like, it's a nice thought to think you'll capture the review after they have the big check. A lot of times that's just forgotten in the process. So when in your process are you requesting the review? Who is requesting the review? If everyone's supposed to get reviews, no one gets reviews, right? So is it the case manager? Is it is it the paralegal? Is it the lawyer? Who's supposed to be requesting the review? And then making sure there's proper tracking and incentives. So I would even consider like a scorecard for your team where it's like, this is how many reviews we got on each location last week, and then celebrate. Obviously, you can't pay reviewers, but you can incentivize your team to make sure that they're getting reviews. So those would be my tips of advice.
Yeah, and back in November, I talked to my mastermind group about reviews because they're just so important. And the thing that when I was trying to put together like a guide for like how do law firms get reviews, because I've been in the situation where I've seen law firms like do it. I've seen law firms consistently get reviews over and over, and it's a combination of things. But the big thing that most people miss is it's coaching and training your team, like you said, because you can do employee review contests. Those work great. That's kind of part of it too. But like your team needs to know the best times to ask for reviews. Otherwise, they're just going to wait to the end. They need to know what to say, how to say it. And like keep in mind, like your employees like aren't copywriters by trade or probably
Right.
not even salespeople by trade. So like they need that coaching because it's an awkward request if you don't know how to ask.
Right.
And so like I talked to the mastermind group about it and just talked to my clients about it. Like there needs to be specific points where you
Mhm.
request reviews, and there are effective ways to ask for reviews and there are less effective ways to ask
Yeah,
for reviews. And it's more of a coaching thing instead of like a system or an automation
totally.
or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And yeah, I think how do you make it easy for the person giving the review? A lot of people just say, leave us a review, but making sure it's the link that goes directly to the where they just have to click the number of stars and they're good. And to your point of like, yeah, it's not always about automation, but sometimes firms have technology that they're using, like if they're already using case status or HONA or something on the client experience side that can help them kind of make sure they're delivering this message to the clients in the most easy way for the client to receive an action.
Oh man, I love both those tools. I mean, and it's practically almost essential. I mean, it because that's one of the bigger, well, I could just go off on a rant, but like keeping the client informed about where the law firm is at with their
Mhm.
case, what to
Yeah.
expect next. Both
Yeah.
those tools help out with that tremendously. And like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So like is there like a trend in how law firms are getting reviews these days? Like, are you seeing like certain types of reviews come through, certain types of reviews get removed, anything like that?
Yeah, there have been some weird nuances with Google recently. So Google has been cracking down on fake reviews, which is good, but in its efforts to do that, we have seen some weird patterns where they've been removing even genuine reviews, which is really sad to see because I know how hard firms work to get those. But what we see, there's not like a perfect pattern, but when we see this happen the most frequently, it's when firms get reviews in patterns and quantities that are different than their historical pattern. So I would say if you're wanting to put more emphasis on reviews, that is wonderful, but maybe do it in a like a linear fashion to kind of ease your way into getting more reviews. Some firms will have they get one review a month and then all of a sudden they do some sort of backpack giveaway and they ask everyone at the event to leave a review. They get 20 reviews. Google noticed that as suspicious activity and thinks you just purchased a bulk load of reviews, and then those will often get taken down. So just trying to be really gradual with the improvements that you make so that you don't get into any sort of Google spam trap is important.
And also like linear review growth. I think people forget to be objective about the strategies and the marketing that they're trying to implement, because what looks suspicious to you as a customer? Like
Yeah.
somebody getting 20 reviews within the span of 3 months and then
Yeah.
nothing for the last like six. Like,
Totally.
if
Yeah.
if you saw that, you would probably give you pause, right?
Yeah.
And, and Google is looking at these things objectively too when it comes to like, I think how your website ranks.
Hmm.
Google cares more about what other people say about your brand and your website
So,
than what you say about it, right?
yeah. Hmm.
And that's just like good old fashioned research, like
Yeah.
college research. If you're doing like a paper or something, don't rely on the primary source, secondary source. You need a multiple points of view, blah, blah, blah. And I think people forget that. And
Yeah.
like what looks natural, what looks real and
Yeah.
authentic to our customers. And Google also pays attention to that stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
totally. Maybe just
and
building off of that super briefly on the kind of tying together what we mentioned about reviews and what we mentioned on AI. Another thing that's important is making sure your reviews are on your website in a way that the LLMs can read it. So because what you just mentioned, Tiffany, kind of sparked that for me because you said like Google looks at what do others say about your website and what do they say about your firm. And essentially the LLMs we are finding are not able to really process the reviews on your business profile. And what I mean by that is like if you say, what are the reviews for XYZ law firm, it's going to spit out a bunch of information and it is never a link to your Google business profile and it's never pulling the reviews from your Google business profile. It will tell you your Yelp reviews, your Avvo reviews, your FindLaw, but it's not scraping your Google business profile reviews. So it's important to have your reviews on your website, the positive GBP reviews that you worked hard to get. And there's a very specific way you need to do it because many people just have some sort of widget plugin on their website that pulls in the GBP reviews, but that's usually some sort of like backend WordPress, JavaScript plugin or whatever that the LLM is not actually reading the text of the review because of the way it's just reading like the plugin code. And so
yeah.
having actually like putting the reviews onto your website as text or whatnot on the site is important to make sure those are readable by the LLMs.
So a couple months ago, maybe even a year ago, there was a time when like if you did some sort of search that was like personal injury attorney near me,
Hmm.
ChatGPT's results would link to Google Business. And it looked
Yeah.
like it was essentially pulling the top three rankings from Google Business.
Hmm.
Now, I thought that was interesting because that meant probably a good bit of traffic coming from Google Business was actually originating from ChatGPT. And then pretty quickly I saw that wasn't happening anymore and it made sense. If I was OpenAI, like that's a bit like Google kind of eating your lunch. You're technically a competing tool.
Hmm.
But like you took that a step further for me because I didn't think about it. But like ChatGPT probably gave its AI the directive to like not use Google properties in their ranking at all. And I guess I just hadn't thought of that. And then again, like something we've already said before, it goes back to like the good old fashioned principles and putting testimonials on your site,
Hmm.
reviews of all forms, not just like Google reviews, but
Yeah,
like the note that your customer sent you saying thank you so
totally.
much or
Yeah.
anything like that. Videos,
Yeah.
testimonials. Yeah, so important.
Exactly. And it kind of comes back to this concept of a lot of what was traditional SEO best practices, right? Of strengthening, obviously, the Google algorithm is still EEAT, experience, expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness, and having things like reviews and testimonials strengthen those elements. So it's important traditionally, but now it's kind of doubled down important because, yeah, we've done probably like over 50 of these AI visibility audits and it pulls a lot of information on your firm when you ask it to find reviews, but I've never seen even one that cites the Google Business Profile as the source of the review data.
So do you have like a proprietary tool that you use to get like audit information on a brand, or are you using like something that's publicly available? Like how are you approaching that?
For the
Roughly.
AI audits, yeah,
Yeah.
I wish there was an amazing tool out there. To be honest, I have been very underwhelmed. We've tested both the SEMrush and Ahrefs tools that are being created and a few other kind of ones that we've seen, and I have not found any that are well fit for purpose for what a law firm needs to know. So the way we actually do it is manual, and we ask ChatGPT a series of questions about your firm. And each time we obviously we do it all in the like incognito ChatGPT so that it's not biasing its history with our own past searches on the firm. And then once we ask it all the questions about your firm, then we look more broadly for visibility by just asking it the key transactional search terms that you want to appear for. So car accident lawyer, Houston, et cetera. And then we look at what firms appear if your firm is in the list. And then if you're not in the list or if you're not at the top of the list, we ask it, what did you consider when putting this list together and why didn't you include XYZ firm? Now, it's not perfect in that obviously every time you search ChatGPT, you're going to get something different. LLMs by nature always produce a lot more variation in their responses, but even doing it once helps with understanding what are the different sources that it's drawing from in the decisions that it makes. So that's what we found to be the most effective way.
Yeah. I mean, even if you don't like audit your own brand, like if you just try out like a few searches, like personal injury attorney, New York City, or personal injury attorney, Cheyenne, Wyoming, you're going to see like the sources that ChatGPT, Claude, and Perplexity are pulling from. And this is why it always links back to traditional SEO, because guess what? Those tools use sites that have a high domain authority within the legal sphere, and those happen to be low, no low, and all
Yeah.
those big directory sites. And also just other like local news sources. Imagine if there was just a bunch of local news stories about you and somebody went to ChatGPT and said, who are the personal injury attorneys in Cheyenne, Wyoming? And you're just always in the news in Cheyenne, Wyoming. It is very likely that it's going
Yeah.
to list you first because you're the most prominent on the internet.
Totally. I
Yeah.
completely agree with that. I think doubling down on what lawyers do in their local community is more important now than ever. Doing it, obviously getting visibility on those sites, having a community page on your own website, etc. And I think it's important for a few reasons. One, because it sends local signals both to Google and to the LLMs. But two, I also think it creates a more defensible positioning for a lot of firms. I know a lot of firms are worried about all the PE activity that's going on as far as firms getting bought up and more of like a firms kind of going national, whether it's on their own or through some sort of PE roll up, as well as just the already big national players that are out there, right? Like the Morgans and Morgans of the world. And I think that what law firms do in their local community is often most difficult for those national firms to replicate. And so I think it creates a more true competitive edge for you because you'll never outspend them, right? On like, or it's just not a cost efficient strategy to try to outspend them, right? So I think this is a smarter strategy for these more small to mid-sized firms.
Yeah. Well, I guess we're getting up kind of close to the end of the time. So I need to go through into my last typical few questions. So, was there anything that we didn't get to that you were thinking of talking about or you wanted to talk about briefly?
Maybe the only other thing is we do get questions of like, does my website and like the visuals of my website still matter in the world of now there's more zero-click searches, is what a lot of folks are talking about. What we found is I would say look at your own Google Analytics, but you are still getting people to your website, even if, there are more zero-click searches. And what I always suggest is a simple exercise is firms go to their website as if they've never been to their firm's website before and just try to navigate around as a user and take the key actions of like making a phone call or submitting a form and just making sure that that's as easy for everyone as possible. Because I feel like that's where people have a lot of low-hanging fruit of, it shocks me, but probably 15% of the clients we start working with, there is some critical error in their process, right? Like their intake form just doesn't submit, right? And so fixing some of those kind of clean, low-hanging fruit on the UX side can help boost your cases.
Yeah. Well, one lesson I'm going to teach lawyers in 2026, and at the end of the year, everyone's going to be aware of this, is that your website is more than just, how it ranks in Google.
Mhm.
It's the linchpin, the hub of your marketing, if you will. I feel like I'm actually really happy that search traffic is declining because now we can begin to ask broader questions of like what can be done with our website that's
Mhm.
not just to please Google or whatever.
Okay.
And never forget that like humans are really apt or really prone to like backwards justification of their decisions.
Mm.
I've told this story before and I'm bored with it, so I'm not going to tell it again. But I made a purchase like last year where I talked to a nutrition coach, saw and got to know them on social media, went to their link tree, booked a consult, did a Zoom, and only when I had their service agreement in hand did I even look at their website.
Mhm.
And, that's what probably a lot of people are doing with your law firm. Like if they call you at their moment of need, you close them, you get a fee agreement in their hands, they'll go to your website if they haven't already been there. And then also tons of other people are going to visit your website, former
Mhm.
clients, potential
Right.
clients,
Absolutely.
journalists,
Yeah, it's your brand.
yeah. And I feel like maybe 2026, maybe 2027. I don't know. I'm proclaiming a lot of things here recently, but like maybe we're going to start getting serious about UX and design because I feel like a lot of SEO companies kind of shrugged it off as like, oh, it's not SEO important. And it's like, it's
Yeah,
not, but like also like a nice website is
totally.
nice. So,
Right. And a rising tide lifts all boats, right? Like you get leads from all kinds of sources that aren't SEO, right? And so if you can improve the UX and the conversion of your site, yes, as an SEO agency, I'm glad that helps your SEO, but like your conversion of your leads you got from SEO. But I'm also glad that it improves your other lead sources as well. And when they come to the site and are more likely to convert.
yeah, it makes me kind of think about I need to upgrade my website. I want to do something cute with it. All right. Well, thank you so much for being a guest, Julia. Where do you want people to go look you up, learn more about you and your company?
Yeah, you can always connect with me on LinkedIn if you want to connect with me personally. I'm Julia Whitrock Hensel on LinkedIn. And then our website as well, lexigate.com and repspert.com are also great places to get in touch.
Well, thanks so much again. And thanks everyone for listening. We'll see everyone next time.
Thanks for having me.